whether the consumer, what is the consumer looking for? Believe it or not, the consumer doesn't know anything. Actually, they are not the ones who should be dictating what we want, but we must be forecasting or introducing something that they may not have even imagined. So by and large, we need to understand that the consumer is willing to experiment.
So what we do actually is, what we've started, recently is we lock ourselves in a room every month, and we come up with the most ridiculous ideas. And what we do is that it's basically there's everyone in the room has to come up with as many ideas as we can, and we actually write it down on the board. And at the end, some of them are really outrageous. And we're working on one right now, and I hope it comes out. It's been over 6 months we've been working on it. It's still not done. It will get done, hopefully.
There is a need for every designer to upskill. There's no, better time than now to upskill each of the designer's capability. What happens is the traditional designer who does not make themselves aware of the social media world, the world outside, the fashion trends outside, then they would definitely have a challenge in creating a design or products that suit the consumer today. So colors can give you a little bit of a upper hand because your competition is very low in colored stones. Now, when I say colored stones, it's not just the big three, but all of the others beautiful stones. Huge number of get rich quick or the sale today, which is more important than the sale or building a brand. Building a brand is very different from running a business. So to that extent, building a brand requires somebody to take a back seat from a typical sales-oriented approach to something that is more to do with sustainability of the brand of the business.
Thank you so much. And it's, of course, a pleasure and an honor to have Dr. Vinod Hayagriv and Chaitanya, both of you here talking to us. And of course, the topic is absolutely apt for this legacy of leadership. And what I don't think there could be any other question that we could start off with rather than talking about the 155 years of legacy. So my question to you, Dr. Vinod, is how has Sri Krishniah Chetty group of jewelers maintained its legacy over these 155 years? And in your opinion, what are the core values that have been essential in maintaining this legacy, in preserving this legacy?
Well, by and large, it is very similar to any good business, which means that one needs to be extremely, especially in our industry, which is also similar in all other industries of some caliber, is to be very transparent or very upfront in what you do, which means there can't be two agendas. In business, it's an agenda of the truth. I mean, it's that what makes it last. Most businesses try to chase profits or chase balance sheets, and that gives a very different outcome as against something that you think about not for today, but you think about a brand for next year or 10 years or 15 years. So either the outlook is less sales. That's one of the reasons that I think that people in for a huge number of get rich quick or the sale today, which is more important than the sale or building a brand. Building a brand is very different from running a business. So to that extent, building a brand requires somebody to take a back seat from a typical sales-oriented approach to something that is more to do with sustainability of the brand of the business.
Thank you, sir. That was a very important point that you mentioned, which is not to look at the sale today, but to build a brand. Sir, from a leadership perspective, now you've led the company for almost 7 decades now. What leadership practices do you believe are crucial for this longevity that comes in building a business and building a brand, like you said? So you're on mute.
Brand building is long term. no brand has been built over a very short period. If you take a Tiffany, for example, it has been there for over 150 years, but the real growth of that company happened from the 1960s. Until then, they were still a kind of mom and pop store on in New York, in Manhattan. What changed is from the 60s when they started looking at brand building, it moved from the outlook of a mom and pop store towards a organization. So much so in 2008, when we were looking for, international talent as well as Indian talent, we had a merchandiser from Tiffany coming in for a job at Krishniah Chetty. This was in 2008 and 9. I asked her a very simple question. Why do you choose India? And she said, I think India has a lot of potential for the future, and therefore she wanted to look at Krishniah Chetty as one of the options. And a very interesting thing that she said was, there is no owner at Tiffany at that time. Up to 1960s it was, but post 60s there was no real owner. It was a listed company, and therefore professionals ran the organization. That made a very big difference in the outlook of brand building. So much so that lady had a very interesting insight, and that is, there was no training team at Tiffany. When I asked her, who does your training? Because you're talking about excellence in operations, excellence in, sales and finance and all that. She said, each one of us who are heading a department are training our people. So that means she as a merchandiser was head of merchandising, was training the merchandising team and so on. So therefore, it made a very big difference in the outlook to say that a brand is something that goes beyond a short period of time.
That's a very valuable lesson, and thank you, sir, for sharing that anecdote. I want to draw something from this, which you mentioned is, using Tiffany as an example. You said that at certain point there was no ownership, right? Just to reiterate something that that you could share a little more, shed some more light on, which is the leadership practices that you have, that you believe have been crucial in sort of building CKC into the brand that it is.
Quite a lot of times we have to listen to non-jewelry leadership lessons. So we all belong to various groups of management groups. Now, when you listen to them and you look at their philosophies, you suddenly realize how unique you are, or different you are, or very like you are. So to that, whether it is the old world Peter Drucker way of working, or it is a new world way of management, there is a little difference. Peter Drucker was, was relevant at one point of time, but today everything that he said 10, 20 years ago is not valid today. You have to kind of move towards today. You have to adapt it, or you have to modify it. Similarly, if you look at a luxury strategy, for example, I think it is Pfeiffer, his book on luxury strategy, which is the authority on luxury. Now, when you read that book, it's all about every word and every sentence of that luxury strategy book. Every page and every sentence is completely in place. When you read it, you will want to read it 2-3 times. Every paragraph you want to read twice in order to understand the deeper meaning of it. Therefore, such books, reading them would probably give us a better insight into how businesses ought to be run. If you're in the luxury business, how the luxury business ought to be run. And sometimes it is not possible for me to explain everything in a short period, but there is a very large number of lessons that one can learn from organizations and books like Pfeiffer's luxury strategy.
Thank you, sir, for that book recommendation. And of course, I think the insight over here, the key takeaway is definitely look at luxury brands that are built outside the gem and jewelry industry. And that's where, you could take away a lot of these insights to build these legacy brands. You spoke about how many of the theories that Peter Drucker had put out are maybe not that relevant in today's day and age. And of course, comes along disruption. That's we talk about the VUCA world and we talk about disruption, and we have a disruptor among us, which is Chaitanya. Chaitanya, my question to you is, as a young leader in the business, right? What modern approaches, and sir gave us that a little bit of context also. So, what modern approaches are you implementing to prepare the company for future challenges, for upcoming challenges? And again, we're in an uncertain world. So, how are you preparing, Chaitanya?
So, to me personally, I think that when we look at what's happening today, I think it's all about speed. There's a lot of things changing very quickly. I think technology, when we say tech, it's not like, to me, tech is not ChatGPT. It's now become normal. There's so many new applications like render or all these AI tools which really help you get work done a lot faster, and platforms that really sync up everything. I think today it's information. I think it's data, and I also believe that the whole aspect of using AI is actually going to help in every sphere, from designing to manufacturing to retail to customers to every aspect actually. So I think that'll be one of the things we're doing. And of course, we also, sometime back, we actually posted on my Instagram page where all our teams were actually in a room and we were teaching them how to become influencers. Because our own teams who can use Instagram, can use the platform to sell, we were teaching them how to become influencers. And that way, that's one more thing that everyone comes in sync, where stuff like this is what we do.
That's an interesting approach. Of course, very disruptive. You create influencers from within the company. Now, my next question is to both of you. Of course, you have a legacy brand which is, been preserved for 150 years plus. How do you balance embracing these new technologies? You spoke about AI, you spoke about every other technology that's coming up and that could disrupt. And how do you balance these modern technologies as well as maintaining the traditional craftsmanship? Now, I'm purely talking about the jewelry collections that you build. How do you balance that tradition with modernity in your operations as well? And from a customer perspective, how do you balance that? What are customers looking at? Do they seek the traditional craftsmanship? Do they want a modernity touch to it, contemporary designs? How do you blend these two, especially since you're a legacy brand?
I think my dad can answer the traditional part and I'll answer the non-traditional part.
Right. So I think we have different segments in our business, in every business. One aspect is the crafting, for example, relevant to our industry. The crafting does not go away. You cannot ever say that the craftsman can disappear. You need those people. The craft of the industry must be maintained because that's what gives it its unique USP. How we can equip those craftsmen with tools that are able to give them a better production. For example, you start using tools that allow them to make things better and quicker and with less effort. Equip your production in such a way that you have modern products, which means that we have to keep an eye on European or Far Eastern type of equipment, machinery. We cannot think that everything is already here in India. There might be a simple machine, but they may have introduced an AI capability into it. So we need to continuously look for those tools in order to keep the craftsmen enhance their level, number one, on the tradition. So therefore, a consumer really, there was a question that you asked as to whether the consumer, what is the consumer looking for? Believe it or not, the consumer doesn't know anything. Actually, they are not the ones who should be dictating what we want, but we must be forecasting or introducing something that they may not have even imagined. So by and large, we need to understand that the consumer is willing to experiment. If we are capable of giving them that option, they might consume it, and they might consume it quite well, better than what we want. So the traditional aspect of business can never disappear as much as we bring in the new technology. I think Chaitanya and I were yesterday evening in a conversation as to how to bring a better experience to the consumer. And we were talking about some things that we've never seen. For example, can you make a piece of jewelry appear in thin air in front of the consumer at the flick of a finger? Now, it's not that the technology does not exist. It's a question of harnessing the technology to bring it to the desktop, bring it to the point of sale, which is what I keep saying, Gembutsu Gemba. Wherever there is a consumer, can we give them that experience at that point? We cannot go on the traditional route of saying, if you click this, you will get this. Chaitanya is one who hates more than 2 or 3 clicks. He hates anything more. Chaitanya, all yours now.
So what was the question again?
Thank you so much, sir, for that amazing answer. Chaitanya, the question was, how do you, maintain that balance between embracing new technologies and maintaining traditional craftsmanship? And again, there was that angle of, from a customer perspective. Before I let you answer, Chaitanya, I just want to go back and reference something that sir mentioned, that the customer does not know what they want. And I remember reading this in Steve Jobs' autobiography, Walter Isaacson, who's wrote it. And Steve Jobs is quoted as mentioning that, if you ask a customer, and he actually quoted Ford on this, and he said when Ford was looking to build motor cars, when they wanted to do a market survey, Ford said, if you ask a customer what they want, they would say a faster horse. So that's a great insight. Chaitanya, back to you. So how do you balance these technologies? Where does customer inputs come in?
So I think that customers, as we mentioned earlier, that I think sometimes customers need options. They need to be directed in a way that they can end up buying something. Otherwise, they're going to buy what's available. So what we've done is, I mean, this is also something like when this whole thing started with AI. One of the examples I can think of is I was at the store, and my teams were trying to figure out how to sketch out what they wanted. And it took more than an hour and a half of them not really understanding what was required. So I actually went there, I opened up my phone, and I went on this app I have, and I just asked them what they want. They said, I need this size, I need this color, I need this occasion. Within a second, not really a second, but very quickly, an image had rendered. And it was almost to what they were looking for. And that whole process took not more than 15 seconds technically, but whereas the teams were trying to figure out for 1 hour what to do. And then from that picture is what we sent to the factory, and we had it manufactured. And the customer purchased it, and it wasn't something small. It was quite a significant purchase. It was like a 5-carat diamond, which was in that piece. And the whole process cut down time of sketching, time of rendering, time of re-edits, all that done in 15 seconds. So these are things that we're doing in the stores and in the offices and everywhere at CKC.
That's interesting, Chaitanya, what you mentioned. I mean, and sir also said, it's about harnessing technology. Technologies may be available, but to be able to bring it, like sir said, Kembutsu Gemba, the famous Toyota philosophy, to be able to bring that to the point of sale, I think that's amazing. I just have a follow-up question, Chaitanya, on the point that you mentioned. Where does this leave, these amazing, talented jewelry designers, when they look to create collections, when they look to be inspired by nature, by architecture? Of course, there is a client who's asking you that this is what I want, and there's technology to aid and render up it in seconds. What happens to the skill of talented jewelry designers that we have in the industry? Do they become redundant? Does this technology aid them? Your opinion on that, sir? I would also like to open it back to you once Chaitanya is done.
I think that design is always required, no matter what. That's where the skill is, right? At the end of the day, the technology only aids the whole process, but the actual thinking, the actual harnessing, the actual end product is done in reality. It can't be left to machines. I think it's more an aid than anything else. I think it helps the process faster, but I don't think designers will ever go anywhere. I think that's the core of any business. So that's definitely going to stay forever.
Thank you, sir.
So A designer skill set has changed.
Yeah.
There is a need for every designer to upskill. There's no, better time than now to upskill each of the designer's capability. What happens is the traditional designer who does not make themselves aware of the social media world, the world outside, the fashion trends outside, then they would definitely have a challenge in creating a design or products that suit the consumer today. The Gen Z, we call them in Krishniah Chetty, we call them Gem Z. Now, these are the people who actually want completely out of the world thinking. Now, this kind of a thinking would come if the designer was equipped to quickly connect with the mental outlook of the consumer. Earlier days, if you remember, we used to do focus groups. We call 20 clients in a room. We have spend a day, ask questions. They share their jewelry ideas, etc. Today, you don't need those focus groups anymore because you get far more focus groups on social media. So being connected to the world is actually today on, that small 4x3 device. Therefore, as much as we kind of say that, you're getting addicted to a telephone or a smart device, but how you use it is going to be very important. In fact, if you analyze how much time that a designer has spent on, let us say, their device, it will give us an idea of what they were looking at and how they were influencing themselves and how they were creating a bank of Pinterest boards or whatever. So to a large extent, the skill, the group of people don't go away, but the way in which they deliver the products will change, has changed.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for those 2 cents. Now I want to ask you, I know we may have touched upon a little bit, but specifically at CKC, if you could talk about some of the initiatives that you take to engage with the next generation of customers. You talked about Gen Z, the term that you use at CKC. So how do you do that? And not just the customer front, I also want to talk about employees. What sort of initiatives you take to engage them, to keep them with the brand as the brand is growing, as the legacy continues to grow? How do you keep and engage and develop your talent force?
All right. It's a continuous process. We don't always have the kind of skills that we always need. There will always be that delta gap between what one needs and what one has. An organization needs a very dedicated set of people who will influence or inspire people to upgrade their knowledge. Now, we are currently looking at, for example, GIA's various courses. I think you are evolving your course content, and you have a variety of short-term, medium-term, long-term courses, which means that all of them will have to go to spend time. That means there is a reinvestment of continuous education. And that brings about their capability and their sustainability and probably their growth within the organization. Without that, some people will stagnate. The other day, I was speaking to somebody at LIC, Life Insurance Corporation, and they said they have thousands of employees, right? And they've all stuck at a particular level, and they're not able to move beyond that. The LIC is such a mega business that profits keep accumulating, but the people are stuck at one point. They're not able to move into a new skill. That is now being threatened by other insurance companies like GoDigit, and which are far more tech-driven businesses. And it's not a matter, it's not if, but when LIC's share of business will drop compared to the rest, maybe in a couple of years. So therefore, that sustainability of employee, what you call skill enhancement, is a very important part of business structuring.
Also to add to that, I think it's also, the way we get everyone involved. I think today everyone likes to be involved in various, in the various areas. And I think that whole process of being part of it as a team, see, we don't believe in hierarchies, right? We don't believe in upper management, this, that. I mean, of course, levels are there, but when I work with the teams, I'm trying as much as I can to really work as equals. I think that makes it a lot easier for everyone. And I think that gives a lot more comfort as well. I think that helps also really improve the business.
That's interesting. So continuous education, skill enhancement, no hierarchies. That's how you look at employees. Thank you so much. Now the question to both of you again is, I know there may be thousands of customer interactions that would have, left a lasting impression on you. But if you could pick a few stories, few anecdotes, and share with us some, amazing customer stories that you've had in all these years, especially when you're at the storefront, when you're at the sales counter.
Actually, for me, I think, I remember when I think one thing that's really stuck with me was when we launched our Instagram account initially, when Instagram just launched. And of course, I'm the guy who likes to be there and make sure everything's all okay and chat with everyone and make sure it's all going right. And I remember the first conversation I had, that was an important conversation, where it was a lady from, I think, America or Ireland or somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where she was from. I have no idea who CKC was, no idea who I am. I have no idea who she, she's never entered any of our stores. And she kept asking us questions on, can we make a ring? Can we make a pendant? Many things. And the whole conversation went on for close to a week. And I kept talking to her and making a sketch, making a design, uploading it, sending it to her, and she kept going. And at the end, she actually placed the order. And it was an online Instagram order for over a crore. And it's someone who never been to our store. And that was one really interesting story, which is from an online without even knowing who they are. And she just swiped her credit card, actually. That was one. The other one is where I think when we launched our space in our lab grown jewelry, where there was this couple who entered, who was wanting to buy jewelry, and it was amazing to see there was a massive age gap between the two, and she wanted all the jewelry to be a certain way, and of course he couldn't do what she wanted for obvious reasons. And at the end, the way they converted the whole thing, and the entire jewelry for the wedding was all in lab grown, which to me was very surprising, because I'd never seen anyone do the entire wedding with lab grown only. So it was quite interesting.
Thank you, Chaitanya. So, any interesting customer stories? I'm sure there are many that you can regale us with, but maybe.
Well, there are some clients, and there are some extremely eclectic clients.
Mm-hmm.
Those eclectic clients make my life. Okay. And one that I might cite is this mega man in the world, who is a man, but he loves jewelry. Not today, but for last 40 years. A good friend of mine, but also one of India's most wanted men. Okay. And this I'm talking about Vijay Mallya. All right. So he is from Bangalore. We are from Bangalore. He is one of our finest clients, never defaulted on his payments, much unlike his public opinion made out by the press today. And he and his mother and his natural mother and his natural father, all clients, so 2 or 3 generations. Now, what I learned from him was that a man can be as glamorous as a woman. And he would wear the most glamorous jewelry ever. The experience that I have that I could probably share with him out of many is that I had to make his, United Breweries has a logo of the flying horse, the Pegasus. And this Pegasus, he said, I want you to make the most beautiful, authentic Pegasus ever. So he said, I want the wings to move. I want it looking real, like a, healthy, bloody, sorry about my word, but a healthy Pegasus, a flying horse. It took me some time to conceptualize, but we finally made it. He was so thrilled with it. It had a beautiful South Sea pearl in the claws of uh, uh, the Pegasus. And then what happened was he gave it as gifts to a billion, I don't know how many people. And he kept making from cufflinks to pendants to anything and everything. One fine day, he said, come over. And I went there at 11 o'clock in the morning. And he said, come home. When I went to his house, he unwrapped tissue paper. And I was looking at him unwrap it and then paper into paper. And finally, what I saw there was a lot of blood. I said, Vijay, what's this? He said, come here and have a look. And when he opened it, it was real claws of a lion. And he had shot the lion himself, licensed killing in Africa. He doesn't do anything, as I know him, he hasn't done anything illegal. So he has a licensed shooting in Africa, brought those lion claws, and I made jewelry for him. Of course, we cleaned up the blood and everything, but it was a magnificent small collection of 10 claw jewelry. And that's what I believe was an eclectic person who says, look, he creates the raw material and we create the finished product.
Wow. I mean, I don't think jewelry clients can get as eclectic as this. But thank you, sir, for sharing that anecdote. Beautiful story. Fabulous. Sir, I mean, I'm still reeling from this story, but I want to ask you, especially in a family business, right? There are many of our alumni who are into family businesses, gem and jewelry industry. Many of our businesses are family run. Now, managing a family business can involve complex dynamics, right? How do you approach resolving differences of opinions in the family? Assume a hypothetical situation where Chaitanya comes to you, sir, and says, Dad, this is a bad idea. Is there a possibility that you can come to a consensus, or does experience beat young ideas? How does it work? And the question is to both of you. I'd like to hear both perspectives.
If it is coming from me as an answer, I would tell you, let there be a dissidence. Let there be a difference. If you have, as again, some of these management gurus said, if you're surrounded by people who are yes men for you, you are doomed. You have to have people who have a different opinion and a different way of doing things. Like I give you a little example of somebody who was cleaning up, this is a sweeper man who was sweeping up rubble in a building that was being constructed. And he was clearing up the mortar. Finished, he took 2 days to clear it up. And 3 days or 4 days later, on the other side of the building, somebody was knocking and cutting through. So this man said, what are you guys doing? I just finished cleaning up. Again, you're messing up. He said, no, we are putting, the earlier one was a lift. They were cutting the slabs for a lift. Now he's saying we are putting another lift on the other side. So he said, what nonsense. I just spent so much of my time and energy. Go and put that lift outside. And that was the idea of the capsule lift. Therefore, let there be dissent. Let there be what you think is the stupidest idea could be a winning idea. And Chaitanya has many of those stupid ideas.
So what we do actually is, what we've started, recently is we lock ourselves in a room every month, and we come up with the most ridiculous ideas. And what we do is that it's basically everyone in the room has to come up with as many ideas as we can, and we actually write it down on the board. And at the end, some of them are really outrageous. And we're working on one right now, and I hope it comes out. It's been over 6 months we've been working on it. It's still not done. It will get done, hopefully. And the top 2 or 3 things that we can do, we actually make sure we take off everything else. Those 2 or 3 things, we have to make sure it's achieved within a month or 2. So that's one thing we do. But to answer your question, in terms of ideas, I think it's always good to come with information, statistics, and data. I think that all of us have to convince each other. I think that's one thing I'm very fortunate, even though my dad, being who he is in the business, he's always been open to hearing me out. He's never put me down. He's never said, no, this is a stupid idea, we can't do it. He's always found a way to figure out a way to make it happen. So I think that's one thing where you have statistics, data, and you're able to convince is where I think is what makes a business also successful.
I may add to that aspect is you may have a different opinion in a brainstorming session or in a board meeting or in any meeting. Once you let there be dissent, let there be arguments in the meeting, because that's what the meeting is supposed to be for. After a decision is taken, when you go out of the meeting room or the meeting desk or wherever, then you are not talking about dissent, you're talking about how to achieve that decision. Delivery of that decision. So this is the format that I have found very useful. In the boardroom, discuss, brainstorm, disagree, agree. But once you've agreed to disagree or disagreed to agree, whatever you call it, after you get out, it is not debatable. It is to be executed.
Right, and that's a unified decision, but unified objective that the entire team is working towards. Chaitanya, it will be interesting. You shared about this meeting where all for the lack of a better word, I would say crazy ideas that are thrown up. Love to know, how do you get those ideas to stick? I mean, you said you sort of narrowed down on a few ideas, executable ideas with the time frame, smart goals to say. How do you go about that approach? Be interesting to learn.
So honestly, it comes down to really what is achievable, because some of them are so outrageous that it makes no sense. But we can do it eventually. And what we do is honestly, so when we get in the Zoom, there's certain rules that we have. We have to finish it in X amount of time. If it can't be done, we can only spend X amount. So we have certain rules that we have to apply. So that way, all these ideas get constrained after that into these rules. So then those rules are the ones that dictate what we can do at the end of the day. And these rules are not by me, it's by all of us. We've all come to a conclusion of these rules. And that's the only way so when we started, actually, we didn't have anything, right? So nothing really happened. It just came, we wasted time, we came up with ideas, and that's it. But then we started implementing these ways, and it really worked.
Right.
If I may add one more aspect to this is sometimes in modern world, it is called design thinking. So creative thinking and design thinking is itself a deep subject and not everybody can do it. I think Indian Institute of Management has a separate course on design thinking. Now, for that, everybody cannot just be creative. Creativity is also an art and a science. And how to think holistically, because a great idea on its own is no idea. If the great idea is backed by what it affects the entire workflow, then your idea can become implementable. Quite often, knee-jerk reactions happen. We'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. Then what happens, it will last only for a few weeks or a few months. Then it is forgotten or it is impossible to continue. So it needs to be creative thinking with scientific, holistic analysis, or bringing everything together, understanding what impact it has on 500 people or 100 people or 50 people. That is the objective of creative thinking.
Thank you. And as Chaitanya was saying, that these decisions sort of need to be backed by data analysis or logic to that extent. But it's interesting to know how there's a guiding line that sort of drives these decisions. Chaitanya, you spoke about it a little bit earlier, and as a customer story. So I want to ask you your view on the future of laboratory grown diamonds. How does C. Krishniah Chetty group of jewelers address this market? And I know you recently have also launched Clash Club. You could also talk a little bit about that and talk to us a little about the future, right? And we'll go back to Sir after you.
So lab-grown diamonds, obviously, everyone knows what it is now, right? So there's no need to explain what it is. I think what happened was, even for us, I think we were very skeptical initially. And I think that when I discussed this with my dad, and let's do this, and it took us a year or two to figure out it. And for some reason, I was very confident. I felt that it can work. So when he went on a holiday, I actually did all of it when he was away. And when he came back, he saw a new counter, a new team, a new everything in place. And we've been able to, I think the future of that is that it's a very affordable line, obviously. I think India is such a young country. And I think that this is another option for people to buy. I don't think it's ever going to replace diamonds. I think natural will always be there, and natural will still be as important as it is, if not, it'll get even more important. Lab grown, I think, would give a new segment of people which don't exist as of now. And I think that it'll be more like an add-on sale or a lot more easier purchase. Yeah.
All right. See, to me, I believe about somewhere in the region of 10 to 15% of the jewelry industry are diamond buyers. So therefore, you've got 85% of the industry consumer does not buy diamonds. So therefore, there is a window there that diamonds can become affordable to a large amount of the population. Instead of buying something else, a real diamond, even if it is lab grown, is not a bad idea. However, as time goes by, all of those other issues will also go away because you use less power to create the lab grown diamond. You will have, various ways. I think there's been some news about how to produce a diamond in 15 minutes. So we are talking about crashing the entire capability of lab grown and making it more affordable. I believe I think the biggest question the industry asks is, how does it affect the natural diamond industry? I believe that natural diamond industry, it may be biased coming from us because we are jewelers who invested heavily on diamonds. But I believe that diamonds do not necessarily lose their sheen. What would happen is that the lab grown will add another dimension to the consumer. So the consumer might buy both, but not might buy, but they will buy both. And they might coexist. There's no going away of it, is what I believe. But yet, I think let's watch, because there's a lot coming in the future.
Great. So you mentioned the term crashing. Chaitanya, I want to ask you, is that how the brand name was decided?
No, it actually, so what happened with Crash Club is that we love rhinos, like from Africa, right? Rhinos come from Africa. And a group of rhinos is called a crash. And that's why, and we wanted to form a club where anyone who comes and buys jewelry from this will be part of this club. So it's called the Rhino Club, right? Technically speaking, because we just love rhinos. And that's how Crash Club was actually formed. And it works really well because if you look at the next generation, they love crashing parties, they love crashing weddings, they love crashing into everything, right? So basically, that was a well played out word, and it connected the whole system together.
Beautiful story over there. Thank you so much. So my next question to you is, what advice do you have to give to the next generation of leaders in family businesses? There are many in our audience, and of course, people who are going to watch it in the gem and jewelry industry. Many of them young leaders looking to join their family businesses. What advice do you have for them, sir?
My advice is take the advice, because they are better off advising us. The moment we start professing our thoughts, you will stop their ideas coming up. They have far more path-breaking ideas than we have. Because I'm very clear that if you are talking to the next generation, their ideas are dynamically different, but they are definitely workable. And it's your idea, it's your role to give that idea a place in your plans. Everything is possible. The unimaginable is possible. So therefore, it is idea. Let us bring that, give life to those ideas.
Beautiful piece of advice. Well, now I want to open up a little bit and ask you both your GI campus experiences. Please tell us some interesting stories, some controversial stories, if there are, of how you fared at the GI campus. So for you in Santa Monica and Chaitanya for you in Carlsbad. And
Well,
I believe that there's a good 30 years difference from when you did your courses.
1981 till Chaitanya did this in 2008.
2009.
2000?
8 or 9.
So 2009 and 1981, yes, quite a lot of difference. All right. Keep in mind that in 1981, my father was very clear that if he sent me to Santa Monica to do a course for us 8 months, I would never come back. And therefore, he said, nothing doing, you would sit down at home and do a distance program. That's how I did my distance program from Santa Monica. But then I went and did my exam there, and I did another exam in Hong Kong, because you had GIA had a campus in 1984, I think, in Hong Kong, and I went there. It was very interesting to find all of them were Chinese most of them were Chinese. I was the only one who was non-Chinese. And it was a very interesting experience because they all were so professional in their outlook. So it was also one of my first trips abroad. So therefore, there was a very, revolutionary thinking of those people over there in China, in Hong Kong. And I learned a lot from them, because after we would have a little get together in the evening, and then we would discuss. There would be broken English, but they would really take trouble to explain how they did their business there. So it was very interesting. So between Santa Monica and Hong Kong, I think there's a very big world of difference. But I regret one thing, that Santa Monica was not as romantic as Carlsbad is. Because when I finally went to Carlsbad after it opened, then I only went there because I said I went for the symposium, which I'm awaiting for the next year's symposium. The symposium was very interesting. It had some of the finest people congregating, and we learned so much of the poster sessions and all of those wonderful things that happened in the symposium. And the evening parties were wonderful. And therefore, my gemological, studies are between Santa Monica, Hong Kong, and Carlsbad.
Great. And there is, of course, the GI and AGS, conclave, which is happening in September this year. So maybe that's another reason for you to visit Carlsbad. Chaitanya, how was your experience?
I have no idea where to start, because I think it's one of the best times of my life, literally. I think I've made some of my closest friends, even right now, from there, from when I did the AJP class or the diamond graduate class or the gemstone graduate as well. And I think what I liked the most was how everyone there got so close very, very fast. Because we all lived in the same apartment, we all lived in the same complex, we shared cars, we shared credit cards, we shared everything, literally, right? So all my friends knew my credit card and his, right? But that's what GI is actually. It makes it into a family. And I think one of the best stories I can think of is one of my instructors. His name is Abba, a little small Jewish man who you would think is very quiet, but he's definitely not. And I would be late every single day. I have no idea why I was late every day. And I would be running down the hall every day. And class wouldn't start because I would be the last one to enter, right? And every time I run in, you can hear Abba just yelling across, saying, "Chaitu, why are you late?" That, and then plus just the whole experience overall, I think GI was just amazing in every sphere.
Thank you, Chaitanya. It'd be interesting to know what made you late, but maybe we'll take that offline. Right, Sir and Chaitanya, this is my last question to you, and I really want to understand. I mean, we're in the amazing world of gems, right? Tell us your favorite gemstone. Try and pick only one, and tell me why. Why is it your favorite gemstone?
Colored stone is the foundation of Krishniah Chetty's, because the founder of Krishniah Chetty sold colored beads on a bicycle.
Wow.
Okay, so we all, and for some reason, we are all infused by the energy that our courses gave us, and therefore we are very enamored by color. Number one. Number two, color is less popular in the jewelry stores than diamonds are. So colors can give you a little bit of a upper hand because your competition is very low in colored stones. Now, when I say colored stones, it's not just the big three, but all of the others beautiful stones, which right behind my desk, you would see a lot of gemstones. And I pick these stones from different parts of the world. I just look at something and I import them. And we import them all officially. We pay the duty for all of them. But what is important is you got to know in India, colored stone is just another colored stone. But around the world, colored stone selling or buying is with knowing exactly which mine it came from, which country it came from, who produced it. It's gone to such a detail now that our disclosure to clients must be to that level to say, look, this stone is coming from so-and-so country, if possible, the mine, and then tell them, where is this mine? It's something so exotic. For example, if you talk about Panjshir emeralds, I mean, where is Panjshir? It is between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And if you look at that valley, it is such a narrow valley. And you have to climb up a couple of miles up the mountain to get that mine. And it's only 4 months in a year. Now, all of these put together will make it a very romantic experience to the consumer. And that is what GIA teaches all of us. And that is what we need to practice on a day-to-day basis. That is why I sometimes feel, why is there a lot more GIA people that we can have working with us so that we can, this infectious atmosphere must be enhanced even further.
Great. I'll still hold you to one gemstone that you have to pick, a colored gemstone that you'd have to pick and why.
Many out of that, I still think the conch pearl is a very unusual stone.
Beautiful.
Unusual gem. It's an organic gem, but it's very unusual. But it's also, I mean, since we are in a GIA fraternity, I still want to find out how I can extract the conch pearl from the conch shell without disturbing the organism that lives inside. Because I know that we are in some way, hurting that animal. I think this is where science needs to come in, the way in which we extract these pearls. We need to do something there. We all see conch shells. We know what it is. It's such a beautiful pink organism. But when we take it out, the conch pearl is something that we love. I love it. And when I make jewelry, I've seen the most beautiful people buying them. They're not the ordinary consumer. They are very evolved buyers.
Thank you so much, sir. It's a very unusual, like you mentioned, an unusual choice of a gemstone, but very beautiful, obviously. Chaitanya.
For me, I love Africa. I think when I was very young, I was fortunate to be in Africa. And I think Tanzania, especially Tanzania and Tanzanite. I just love Tanzanite. I'm not sure why, it's just very appealing to me. I like the way it looks. I like the way every single stone just looks amazing. There's no inclusions in most of them. It's always fairly clean. And it just looks great. And I love Tanzanite. And that's only because I think of my trip to Africa when I was 13 years old. So that's why, yeah.
Beautiful story. I would have assumed that it would be a lapis lazuli because you're wearing lapis lazuli. But thank you so much, Tanzanite for you. Thank you so much, Chaitanya, and thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure interacting with you. A great deal of insights. I'll hand it over to Manisha because I'm sure there are some audience questions.
Thank you, Shiv. And there, of course, are questions. After such interesting discussions, the stories, there are bound to be questions. So I'll go the first question. The attendee would like to know what should be the average time for a product to stay within the inventory without being sold. And then there's a follow-up question also to it, that once the average time gets over, how the decision around the product is taken.
Okay. Now, an average time cannot be answered as to generally with all products. Certain products could be weeks, days and weeks. Certain products can be years. So if you were to chase, again, if you're looking at building a brand versus building a sale-oriented business, your decision will be different. For example, I have products which are 50 years old. Now, would you want to, just because it is 50 years, do you want to scrap it? It's a collectible. Therefore, that needs a different approach. Okay, that is in our case, but there are generally in most businesses, I would say anywhere between 3 months to maximum of 3 years, because if you're being unique, producing unique designs, especially when it comes to colored gemstones and diamonds, you do not expect it to sell within few months or few years. Just look at any report of a diamond. You look at solitaire reports. What is the date of the GIA report and when did it come to you? How many are within the last 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Don't you find stones that are dated 2022 coming to you today? Don't you see 23 coming to you today in 24? So therefore, nothing sells overnight. But that is where we need to have the wherewithal to hold those products if it is genuinely a good product. But if it is a junk product or the product has lost its complete relevance in today's market, yes, then you scrap it. Then you can scrap it in 1 year as well. In a regular business, when we keep looking at products, there are times when you take the wrong decisions of making the wrong product, and then you scrap it and you remake it. So that it's not really one answer, but it is relevant or subject to each category of products.
Right. Thank you. That's
Right.
really insightful. Thank you
If
so
I
much.
may just add,
Sure.
sir, to your point, a couple of months ago, we had Vishwat Sangvi of Vishwat Gems, who's a natural saltwater pearl dealer. And he also happened to mention that, especially in this business, which is rarest of the rarest commodities, it's, 360 days buying and sometimes 5 days of selling. But it's also about building that capacity within you to keep buying, to keep accumulating. That was something that I wanted to share, that we had just learned in a couple of previous editions.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Shiv. And there's not before I move on to the next one, Chaitanya, would you like to add something to the question?
Yeah, I think it's more. I think it's exactly what he said. I think both of us were in sync. So I think there's not much I can add there because he said literally everything I would have said.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And the next question is, I believe specifically for Vinod sir, wherein the attendee would like to know the name of the luxury strategy book that you had mentioned some time ago.
The book itself is called Luxury Strategy. It's by Pfeiffer, Pffiver, I think. I may be wrong in the thing, but if you go to Amazon.com, you'll find it very easily. It's The Luxury Strategy. That's all it is. And it's by two authors, but one name is Pfeiffer. The second name, I think, is Pfeiffer. It's right on top of the Amazon.com thing. It's a black book or a red book because there are two editions. They're absolutely wonderful if somebody is in the luxury business.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And we have one more query from one of our attendees. He would like to hear your thoughts on the difference between the loose diamonds or gemstones business and the finished jewelry business. How do you determine which one is the right fit for you?
Yeah, difficult answer. It's a good question, but I think it depends on how much money you want to put into the business. So how much of diamonds clients do you have? How many gemstone clients do you have? And where would you sell it? How long will you take to sell it? And how much money do you want to put in? Again, do you want to put it in the commercial grades or the fine grades? So each of these have to be evaluated. At the end of the day, create a business policy which is useful for the business that you're running. For example, if somebody is running a business that is running, let's say, I just recently met a lady who's in London who creates very beautiful pearl jewelry, but it's only available to her website. Now then she creates pearl jewelry, but whether she puts in diamonds or whether she puts in colored stone is her personal choice. Again, it's the passion. At the end of the day, I think you need to have a passion in what you do. So therefore, you would build your business according to your passion.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Chaitanya, would you like to add anything to this?
Uh, uh, can you repeat the question again, please?
So the attendee would like to, know the thoughts on the difference between the loose diamonds or gemstones business and the finished jewelry business. And how do you determine which one is the right fit for you?
Yeah, very different. It's a very different business, and I think that the skill set is very different. I think the knowledge also, as in Carlsbad when I studied, was very different. I think diamonds was a lot more simpler. Gemstones was very complicated. So I think it really comes down to what you think will do, and yeah, so that's what. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I would also like to share a few images that were shared that Vinod sir actually spoke about. So this is an photo of Mr. Vijay Mallya. He had a wonderful story around this.
If I may
And
add about him, there's something that you learn from your clients. If you interact with your clients, they are your best teachers. Vijay Mallya would readily tell me one thing: there are no working hours for work. 24 hours is you work all of it.
right,
Whether
right.
you're in the office or whether you're not, you would work. Your workspace doesn't matter where it is. His philosophies were different.
Thank you so much. And sir, about this image?
Well, this is Srikanta Datta Wadia, who's the last Maharaja of Mysore. Again, a wonderful client, a good friend. He was kind enough to show me all his jewelry collection end to end on one day between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. And so it was a very thrilling experience. A wonderful man, unfortunately passed away a little early.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. This is the next one.
This is the conch pearl, the most beautiful pearls, I think. Most
Your
beautiful
favorite. Yeah. Thank you. And a little about this.
I don't know how many of you had studied proportion scopes, how to measure proportion of diamonds. At one time when I studied in 1981, GIA was not yet in India, but I bought this beautiful proportion scope from GIA, and I would grade every solitaire over quarter carat on this machine. It was very accurate. In fact, even today, we get back for resale diamonds that we sold in that time, signed reports signed by us in-house, and we did everything in-house. GIA was unfortunately not in India, but I adopted the same principles of GIA and created reports until GIA became part of India. I used to do diamond proportion grading on this machine, and we still have this machine as of now.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So, yes, that was it from my end. So there's one more question. The attendee would like to know, he mentions that he's just joined his family business and he has to choose either go ahead with natural loose diamond section, laboratory grown jewelry, or natural jewelry brand, which is domestic. Where is the industry going? And as someone who is getting into the industry, what would be, what I think he wants to know your advice, as in what will be really useful for him or helpful for him.
Again, it is a belief that you have. I personally think that you have to balance between the two. I'm not saying that you don't do diamonds or don't do lab grown, but lab grown is a little more risky. Diamond would probably be a slightly better bet. Put a certain inventory on diamonds, natural diamonds, put a little inventory on lab grown. Just keep in mind the lab grown can be very different collection. I personally believe don't make the same design in diamond, natural and lab grown. Make completely different collection. That way your consumer has a different choice. It's not a question of taking a 10-cent diamond ring and putting a 10-cent lab grown diamond ring. That will be confusing to the consumer and cannibalizing your own business. But on the other hand, if you had a very different design in natural and a very different design in lab grown, the diamond, then the design will make the choice, not whether it's lab grown or natural. I think we need to get out of this. We need to look more design thinking.
Yes, thank you so much. So that's a very important piece of advice, especially for someone who has to make choice out of a lot of the options available and start a career there. The next question is from Mr. Vishruth. Shiv just mentioned about him, he was on the session and especially talking about pearls. So, as we know, the question is again about the pearls. So, he would like to know, do you see the market of conch pearls in India as compared to Far East and Americas?
For a niche, very niche audience, yes. It's not for everybody. And not everybody can keep an inventory. It's very expensive. And they're not even shapes. So you got to be creative how you do it, but you need an audience for it. So Vishruth, you are the guru. I have to listen to you. So I believe you will have something more to tell me than I can tell you. But conch is a very, very niche product.
Thank you.
Also, Vishruth was with me in Carlsbad, by the way. So we were in the same class together.
Oh,
Vishruth and me.
wow.
No wonder all of them are eclectic people.
Hi, Vishruth.
Thank you so much, and thanks for that mention, Chaitanya. So, just adding to that point, when Mr. Vishruth was on the session, he did mention that probably one strand of pearls sometimes took years to form because the size, the color, the shape, the luster, everything to fall in place and make that strand it took years. So, yes, very much there. Thank you so much, sir. Next question is from Mr. Ratul. His question is specifically to Chaitanya. He says, you have a legacy of a legend. How passionate are you about your dad's collection of gems? And would you wish to cherish and add or to create your own collection of gems? Or are you more fascinated with jewelry?
So I think what you said is perfectly right, Atul. Being in the shadow of my dad is not easy. So I think I've realized very early in my life that it's better to build parallelly so we can both do things really well. But to answer your question, yes, I would love to continue what he started. I think when there's a platform that's already there, it's always good to keep building on it. And that's something I've learned also from my dad, my granddad, that being in the family business or in the business itself, each generation would be able to add on to that. If it's ever stopped, it's not really good because then it's not going to be there. But I'm extremely passionate about gemstones for sure. There are a lot of jewelry that we have that's been passed down and we keep acquiring over time. The only thing I don't have a passion for, which my dad has, is love for classic cars and vintage cars. I'm a little more in the sports car space, but apart from that, we have the same priorities.
Sure. Thank you so much, Chaitanya. The next question, I cannot see the name, but the question I believe is the same person who was asking about what is the best choice for him. I think this is a question from the same attendee. He or she would like to know, in the current scenario where there's a massive variation in gold and silver prices on a daily basis, customers are often seen canceling their orders even after paying advance. Due to this trend, how do you think this issue can be managed? I think they want to know your inputs on this.
Well, I'm not seeing the same over here with us, but if again look at the percentage, if it is some percentage, let it be. Keep your customer, let go of the money, because at the end of the day, customer will remember you later when they said, look, when I wanted help, they helped me. And that's not makes a customer relationship strong. So it is not just the money. You might say, I will not give you the money or I will deduct something. But at the end of the day, if the consumer has a real need and they cannot afford that money, if you've helped them that day, they will be a customer for life.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, sir. And that's such an important advice that one can have. Sir, Ram sir, would you like to ask something?
Yeah, I do. I have many questions, but I'll just limit it to one.
Sure.
In fact, this is a question for both of you. So how do you do it all? I will clarify my question. I mean, you don't do everything. I mean, you're learning, you're doing, you're helping, you're teaching. I mean, you're part of associations, you're giving. Dr. Hayagriv, education is a passion for you. You're giving. I mean, being part of educational institutions. How do you find time for all of this? And I have a similar question for Chaitanya. No, I didn't know much of Chaitanya until you started talking about startups, and then I quickly Googled. Okay, and my goodness. Startup. That's the timeline. I'm actually looking at your timeline. Startup and exit. Startup. How do you do it? Thank
So
you.
do you want to go first, Parth?
Okay, I'll go. Ram, thanks for that question. Very appropriate question. You don't do all the things on the same day. You've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. Look at your window of the number of years you're going to be working. Don't keep thinking that we don't know tomorrow. We all know tomorrow in some way. None of us, I mean, God forbid, but it's not that everybody pops off next morning. The question is, you've got a lot of time. You've just got to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. You have 10, 15, 20, 40 years. Don't be in a hurry. Do one by one very beautifully, in detail, analyze it, develop the knowledge base for it, go deep into the subject and do it. So therefore, you will do, whether I support young children for their education, for their, underprivileged children, or do we want to create a collection of gemstones? Do you want to learn about gemstones? You've got time. You got to just make time. 24 hours. You only sleep for about 6 to 7 hours. The rest of the hours are available to us. And that does not, the more we are enthused about something, the more energy we get. Therefore, there is no dearth of time. It's only a question of prioritizing. I'll do, okay, this, there are times when I have something, I put it on the back burner, but it will be on my desk. I will remember it. If not today, I will take it up next week. If not next week, I'll take it up 2 weeks later. Or I may take it 3 months later, but I will get it done. Meaning I will do it. So it's a question of saying, if I definitely not something good, junk it. But if it is something good and you think it is valuable, let's do it. If not today, you do it tomorrow. And by, as they say, in a matter of time, 365 days, 1% per day will give you 365% of improvement. So that's all we try to do.
So for mine, I think it's working with your team. I think you can't do it all alone. I think you need to have capable people around you, and I think you need to have people smarter than you. And we've always been very particular on who we hire as well. We've always tried to find, any area where they could really add value overall and looking at long term. And as far as the startup score, it was just me doing that just to learn things because I would never be able to do that otherwise. Of course, it did involve investments, but I never was actually running any of the businesses. It was more an investment, but it was more for me to learn and understand what people are doing. And I think what you've not seen there is the latest one is the aerospace, where I've learned a lot about how the tech there is so much more advanced than what we are talking about. So that's how I would do it. And for me, it's more about just meeting people, meeting new businesses, exchanging ideas. And that's why, and that excites me. And that's how I can actually apply that into our own business.
Ram, I'll tell you a little bit about one of his Chaitanya's ideas. which were, because he likes to look at new ideas, it didn't take off ultimately, but it was a very interesting idea. He would say, if you're booking a flight between Bangalore and Bombay, let's say, he would give you obviously a business class ticket. You can choose who you're going to be next to. So if you want, let's say, Wipro's CEO to be on that thing, Chaitanya will get you a seat next to him on the flight that CEO is traveling, and there you pay a premium for it. Chaitanya will earn money out of it, but then he'll say, I'll give you a seat on that day. You'll be ready to travel on that day, whenever the CEO is traveling. When you sit next to him on a business class seat, what happens? You don't simply sleep. You have a lot of ideas exchange, and then you learn a lot from that CEO, which you would never learned in any other business school. So this is the type of ideas, he says, that he gets from these young people who are out of the world thinkers.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. Interesting idea also. It may take off very soon, sir. Thank you. So we have few more questions. So this one again is from Mr. Vishrut. Which gemstones are upcoming in replacement of natural diamonds as to park the money? So there's some investment advice that's being sought here.
If Vishrut can just tell us, is it which gemstone to invest, which will appreciate a lot more? If that's the question, I'm not sure that's a good idea to put money into gemstones for a appreciation. It would be a very small part of your portfolio, because I don't think it's easy to liquidate gemstones easily. So this is driven by your like for something, your passion for something. Sorry to use the word passion very clichédly, but that drives the message home that at the end of the day, if the gemstone is something you like, go ahead and make some stuff in it. Keep making it. You become known for that. Like I think he's so fond of pearls now. He should become the king of pearls.
Right, sir. And someone in the attendees has also mentioned we should buy natural pearls. So the advice is already
Without doubt, it's the natural pearls. Because the natural pearls is bound to become very expensive in time to come. So natural pearls he's in the right business already. That's why I said, listen to these young people.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And he's also mentioned that, sir, you are the guru. This is in the response when you told him that.
It's Mutual Admiration Society.
Yes. And hello, old times style. Hello to Chaitanya. The next one is from Mr. Ganeshan, who has mentioned that in today's world where everyone puts in efforts on branding, sales, marketing, designs, is it advisable to keep enhancing your manufacturing infrastructure, to evolving times, or outsource the products from right vendor partners?
You can't do without vendor partners. The industry is too big and too vast and too innovative. You can't do it all. Put up a manufacturing setup which you can create for your own self, unless you want to cater to B2B. But otherwise, partnering vendors is far more nicer and better in business. The world does it, whether it is Bata or Wipro or Reliance. I think everybody does vendor partnerships. It's not going to be different for our industry.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Chaitanya, would you like to add anything here?
I think he's done a good job with that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. We have another question from, I think, the same alum who had asked previous questions about which is going to be more helpful for him in terms of the category of the business. Here he would like to know, are 9K and 14K, 9K carat and 14 carat jewelry the new 18 carat, just like the West? If so, how can we position it to a customer about 18 carat without stating price as a benefit?
Well, again, I would say experiment it. This is a new thought because the gold prices have skyrocketed, but it's not necessary that it will be always a good thing to keep under, bringing down the quality standards. There is still a 22 and 18. 14 may be there for certain small class of products, but it depends on what your brand positioning is. If your brand positioning is for 18 and 22, stick to the knitting. Sometimes I say experiment a little bit, but stick to the knitting. You ultimately, it's like saying when everybody moves out of your area, then you become the king of your area. So if everybody is moving somewhere else, you be where you are.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. And Arjun also has a question. Arjun is on the panel. He also has a question, after which I'll have another question from the audience. Thank you, Arjun.
Yeah, thanks, Manisha. So uh, I'm really pumped up, and there's so much energy in this session. My God. So my question is for Chaitanya. As a leader of such a complex business, uh, when you are assessing the reports, maybe on a daily or a weekly basis, which data component are you always intrigued about? I'm not, please don't say sales, but something that is driving the sales. Which data component you are always intrigued about and caring the most for?
I would like to break that up into two parts. One is obviously a business-driven statistics, and the other one, which is more emotion. I like to see how happy our people are, because that happy quotient makes the business much more effective. And I always try to figure out where people are going wrong. And I think we've been trying to figure out if we can install these cameras in our store, so we could actually analyze people's expressions and faces, so we can really get more. So we can improve that aspect. And if all our teams are happy, I think it would be a lot more effective. And then I don't think reports really matter if everyone's happy doing what they're doing. So that's one thing I really look for, apart from the normal sales and profits and all that.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Arjun, for that question. We have another question from the audience. Hitesh would like to know. He's mentioned that since liquidating a natural diamond is really tough, lab-grown diamonds pave the way to have the same product with same properties with a cost lower to its natural counterpart, buying and selling difference. So this question is a constant these days. We all are curious to know what's the way forward and what's going to happen. And this is the question from Hitesh too. Is lab grown diamond here to stay and overshadow natural diamonds, which I think partially Vinod sir also kind of addressed by saying that there will be a separate segment, they will be coexisting, but I would still put this question to you all.
You see, we are still discovering and trying to find out how the lab-grown market will change. What Chaitanya has done in his lab-grown portfolio is that a resale almost is a nil value, but when they upgrade it, there is a good value, which means he's forcing clients to they're buying a 1 carat, then please upgrade to a 2 carat tomorrow, 1 year later, 5 years later. But if you want 1 carat, the same diamond to be liquidated, I think he's not offering anything much. But if he's upgrading, the client benefits. So he's put a principle like this. That way, the consumer is told even today that he would get value only when he upgrades. So that is how, as of now, but it might change as he looks at the progress.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And with that, we come to the end of the questions. That was huge list of questions. We didn't realize it's been more than like 1.5 hours. It was a wonderful session. I had a great time. A lot of learnings, a lot of insights, tips for investments, business strategies, a lot of things. So thank you so much, both of you all. And with this, I would like to invite Mr. Sriram Natarajan, our Managing Director, to share a keynote to the audience.
I honestly don't know where to start. I started making notes. I started with a mind map. The mind map got filled up, and then I turned my page, and then you might have seen me walk out a couple of times. Every time I went out and started bringing more sheets of paper. And I actually thought at the end of this, I might have a list to pick from. Now I have multiple sheets of paper that I have to pick from. Right? So that was the wisdom that came out right from the session. First of all, I want to thank you both, Dr. Hayagriv and Chaitanya. Such a unique combination. Vintage cars, speed cars. You each talked about such unique aspects, right? That make this combination work. Right? Dr. Hayagriv spoke about craftsmanship, about legacy, about branding, about transparency, about learning, and Chaitanya talked about speed and data and technology and disruption and challenging, right, the present norms. While they talked about all that, what I also thought was beautifully both grounded really well to a legacy, a certain set of principles, like customer coming first. I don't think that is any difference, right? So I'm grounded in such solid principles, and most importantly, a deep appreciation for what each other does now. That was an amazing combination, I thought, and I think to me that was the most intriguing part, right, of bringing those differences. And Dr. Hayagriv said it so beautifully that if you don't have those differences, right, you're not going to succeed. It's not just those different, but then having true appreciation, right, for those differences, and truly amazing. And just a few other things that I wanted to talk about, that they both mentioned. Transparency in business. Building a brand is not about building a business, right? Building a brand is different. We talked about customer focus. An interesting point that Dr. Hayagriv made a couple of times. I thought, when he said, hold on to the customer, don't worry about profits, right? And there are such circumstances. So just that importance to customer, learning from the customer. The example with Dr. Vijay that he also gave. Men can be as glamorous as women. Very, very interesting. There's a huge opportunity out there, and I think it's something that can be really the future, right, for this business that we're all in. Craftsmanship at the core. I thought that was beautifully said, right? Craftsmanship at the core, technology to enable craftsmanship, and I can't wait for the day that I come to a store and I stand there and pick something and then right in thin air, right? My wife is able to wear it, right, and see it, right, in a mirror. I can't wait for that day. Okay, jewelry in thin air. Yeah, I think you guys are already exploring that. People philosophy, empowering people. Smarter. Chaitanya talked about, smarter than you, right? It's not, that's how it's done, right? That's how you're able to do so much more. That, value for people, bring the right people on, smarter than you. That's the value that they bring. Continuous education, avid reader, and I got clearly Dr. Hayagriv is an avid reader. I don't know if Chaitanya is, but I actually have the red book right on my desk. The luxury strategy. Okay, it's like a textbook. I've not got through too many pages yet, right? Maybe 50 pages or so, but it's like a textbook. Such and humility. It was interesting when Shiv asked, what advice do you have? I think he said, I would rather learn, right, from the younger generation. So not being constrained by the past, right? The whole venture until I've grown. And the view that the two different markets and really, the kind of democratization that platform can do, that, the differences, which is the winning formula, which I already talked about. There is just so much more that, I've listed here, and I want to truly thank you both, right, for sharing your story, sharing the passion that you carry for the work that you do, and the fact that there's so much time, right? So oftentimes we complain about not having enough time. Yeah. Dr. Hayagriv just said, there's just so much time. Okay, but not today. There is a tomorrow, right? When you will have time and for us to pursue everything that we want. So I want to thank you for that. I certainly want to thank the GIA team. I truly look forward to these sessions. I see Minuji here, Ganeshanji here. They were part of one of the previous sessions, and again, such amazing. Vishnu, I'm sorry, I was traveling and I couldn't make it to Vishnu's session. I hope I can still catch it in a video. I believe we have it. So I just want to thank the GIA team, right, for so passionately bringing people together, right? I mean, and if you, what better source to learn from, right? People who've been there and people who've done that, right? What better source to learn from? So, with sincere thanks, the GIA team, Dr. Hayagriv, Chaitanya, we certainly sincerely thank you for your presence today.
I must thank the entire GIA team for the wonderful effort. These sessions are truly enlightening for all of us, and we learn a lot from people who matter. Thank you very much. And I've kept all of those episodes to listen to as we go along, because there's so much there.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you all industry leaders who take out this time and, share the insights, your journey with the audience. Thank you so much. And of course, all this guidance comes from Ram sir and Apurva sir. So thank you all.
Thank you, Ram, for keeping this going. I wish you all the best, and many more sessions in the future to learn from a lot of people in the alumni of GIA.
Thank you. Special thanks to Shiv for doing this, making this session so interesting, posing such questions. So thank you.
Shiv makes it very easy for us, yes, because he's got an infectious way of asking questions.
Yes.
Thanks, Arjun. Thanks, Apurva, for everything. Thanks, Manisha, for everything.
Anytime.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, audience, for joining in today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
See you.
Good day.
Bye-bye. Good day.